trudge of life, at the age of 21, he finally left the orphanage and decided to make his way in the world, wanted to open up a business of his own. So he opened up what he calls a little pushka. From there he took out all the shekels he could find, and he opened up his own business. Beverly Hills had its first kosher taco stand. Shortly after that, he had received a letter from Uncle Sam saying, "Bini, I want you, I want you." So being patriotic like he was, he thought it would only be the right thing to do, and off he went to fight the big one. Was that with Grant or Eisenhower? Anyway, Bernie finally made his way to England as a supply sergeant. As a supply sergeant, he had a little tablet there that he could use to write out requisitions. His favorite one was to get cigars that he would purchase from Cuba, have the U.S. government pay for them, and then sell them to Churchill at 20% off the list price. So one day Bernie said to himself, "Myself, if I can con Churchill like this, just think of what I could do to the Glazers in the LA area." Anyway, with this thought in mind, he decided that he'd like to start a business, but he needed someone that he could trust the books with. So he decided that he would place an ad in the London Times which stated, "Young Jewish boy starting supply business, has need for the following: bookkeeper, secretary, treasurer, starting supply business, and a shipping clerk. Percentage of business for right person." Well, Bernie not only found the right person, but he wound up marrying her, his wife Nora, of 37 years. Couldn't trust the books with someone else, you know. Anyway, we're very sorry that Mrs. Harris isn't here tonight, because I did want to check something with her that we have in here. And she was recently overheard telling Bernie that if he didn't pay more attention to business and a hell of a lot less to playing tennis, that she was going to sell 13.5% of her shares to Betty Darren. Well, anyway, I had planned to have a lot more information on Bernie, but after searching the CRL computer, we received a readout that any further information on him would be backordered. But let me finish up with just a little more serious side and say that we have here with us tonight an individual that must be recognized as the state-of-the-art in the supply business, and never less than a gentleman in any other situation, not to mention the great charity work and generosity that Bernie has bestowed upon many of the organizations which he's affiliated with. So let each one of us at this time, whether it be employee, business associate, or a friend, we wish you the very best. Mazel tov. Bernie, happy birthday.
Maybe that wasn't too serious, but it was close. Now we have our famous Dr. Jerry Newmark.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much, Joe, for giving us a lot to think about. I know for myself, Bernie has been one of those people who has been a total enigma to me. And you've certainly cleared up a lot of things that has explained a lot for me. I'm really happy to be here tonight. I'm a little surprised. I'm happy because, well, I'm kind of a starstruck guy, and I came out here to Hollywood because I wanted to be with celebrities. And when Tinker announced that there were many celebrities here today, I could feel my pulse start to beat. And then when he announced those names, those electrifying names, Jerry Kipper, Don Harder, Bob Steinway, Jim Gillette, Ed Arkin, it was really exciting. I looked at my brother and I could see how excited he was. So it's really quite a thrill. What's so funny? Don, how did you get to the head table? I'm a little surprised to be here today because, well, one of the reasons I'm happy is because, you know, in a tight economic situation, it's nice to get a free meal. But I'm a little surprised because Bernie bought me lunch about 3 weeks ago. And it's very rare that he takes you out to a meal and pays for it twice in 1 year. It really is a surprise. Some of you may wonder how I got to see our Lawrence. Well, I was interviewed by both Bernie and Don separately. And when I talked to Don, I said, Don, what do you really want me to do here? This is a highly successful company here. Well, you're grossing a lot. You may not be netting much, but I know, as Joe said, with a little creative bookkeeping, I feel you're probably doing all right. And Don said, look, this is just between you and me, and I don't want it to go any further. But Bernie doesn't have any friends. And I really want somebody here that will have somebody to talk to. I mean, if you just spend an hour every other week and let him talk to you, what are you talking about? He's got lots of friends. He says, no, but he doesn't have a true friend. I said, well, what about you, Don? He says, yeah, but what if something happened to me? He needs a backup. I said, all right. And then I went in to see Bernie. I said, Bernie, what do you really want me to do in this company? He says, well, I want you to be a friend to Don. I said, Don really doesn't have any friends. So I said, what about you, Bernie? He says, well, I'm getting on in years. What is he going to do after I'm gone? So really, I was hired to be a friend to Don and Bernie, and it's my understanding that I'm their only friend. And then you people may think you're friends, but basically, let's face it, you're really just acquaintances. You know, it's interesting. Bernie is a very humble, modest man, as you all know. And I'm surprised also at this gathering because I would think that a man of his modesty would not want such a fuss made over him. In fact, Don was worried about this. When Don got the idea to have this session, he said, I don't know if Bernie would go for it. And then he went up to Bernie to break the news, and there was a little trepidation. He said, Bernie, we really want to do this thing. We want to have this affair. It's at the Ambassador Hotel. We're going to invite a lot of people. Before he could get through, Bernie said, that's great. Is the Ambassador big enough? It was just really spontaneous. Bernie is one of the most creative executives I know. For example, some of you have heard of the best-selling book, The 1 Minute Manager, haven't you? Yeah. Well, before The 1 Minute Manager became popular, Bernie taught me a little bit about the 1 minute consultant. It goes something like this. 1 minute you're a consultant, and the next minute who needs you? And that could change very quickly, depending on what point of view and the kind of advice you give. But he's also an extremely tireless executive, and who has done a lot in the United States to democratize the workplace. Bernie really gets in there with the people. I remember when I first met him, Arlene directed me upstairs to his office, and when I got to the second floor, I got lost. So I stopped in at the mail room, and there was this distinguished gentleman there who was sorting mail, and I walked up to him and I said, sir, could you tell me where the president's office is? And he said, well, go out the door, turn left, then make another left and go to the end of the hall and then turn right, and that's his office. So I did that, and sure enough, I got there, nobody was there. And I waited and I waited. A week later, I went back to the mailroom and found out that the man who gave me the directions was Bernie Harris. And I found out at that time that he's not an ivory tower executive. He really gets in there with the people. And you'll find him every day sorting the mail, out there with the people. He has that holistic concept of management. And again, as to democratizing the workplace, somebody out in the field told me the other day this little story about Bernie. You all know that he's tireless. When he goes out to visit one of the field sites, he works day and night, doesn't sleep at all. He's up at night in the hotel room lecturing to the people about how to be a salesman. And the next day he was standing on line at lunch at a cafeteria. And Bernie has given new meaning to the expression, "get off my back." Because while standing in a line, waiting to be served or to get to the food, he fell asleep. And then fell asleep right on the salesman's back. He really gets in there with the people. And also one of the things that I've always admired about Bernie is that he's never failed to be a student. Some years ago I gave a time management workshop at C.R. Lawrence. And Bernie is one of the few people in the organization who has applied the material creatively. For instance, Bernie doesn't like to waste time. He believes in the theory of natural occurrences. So there are certain things you do every day, so you might as well do business, such as have lunch. But he doesn't want to take a chance at making a business lunch with a person and not have that person show up. Because if they didn't show up, he'd be sitting around, have nothing to do but to eat. And that would be a waste of time. So Arlene tells me that Bernie always makes 2 luncheon appointments with different people at different locations for the same day. Oh, no, it's very clever, because what he does is 10 minutes before he's ready to leave, he calls his primary luncheon date to see if the person is coming. And if that person is coming, then he calls the other one and cancels the backup luncheon date. That way he's never without a business luncheon. Absolutely fantastic. We're coming to a serious part where we're going to present an award to Bernie. And the award has to do with humility. One day I arrived at C.R. Lawrence at 6:15 a.m. for a seminar. I walked into Bernie's office. Those of you who've been in the office know that he has a large bay window looking out over the warehouse. And I walked in, and his back was towards me, and he was staring out there at the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of goods. And I walked up to him, and quietly I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, "Bernie, what are you thinking?" Thinking that he probably was thinking about power. Look at all that material and goods and wealth. Mine, all mine, as far as you can see. He says, "Jerry, I'm wondering how the hell I'm going to pay for all that." So basically, Bernie hasn't changed. Success has not spoiled him. He's still a very humble individual. And that's why he's going to receive a humility award today. And I'm very pleased that my brother, Dr. Irving Newmark, is here to present this award. And I just want to give you a little background on the award. About 6 months ago, my brother and I acquired a business. We were tired of helping other people get rich. And we acquired a food manufacturing business. And one of our major products, I can't get a plug in? One of our major products, he says, do it on your own time. One of our major products is a chocolate chip cookie. And in order to compete with such stellar cookies as Mrs. Fields and Famous Amos, we had to come up with a cookie that would have a catchy name, but also social significance. And so the name of our cookie is Humble Irving Chocolate Chip Cookie. And this cookie has some special characteristics. It is not only humble, but it is strong. It doesn't crumble. And our motto is, humble won't crumble. And every year we're making this award to the individual in the world who has done the most to exemplify the spirit of humility, of humble without crumbling. And this year the recipient is the man who has proved himself worthy by working with such people as Don Friese, Jim Odette, Jim Brown, Ed Arkin, otherwise known as the Gang of Four, and anybody who could work with these individuals and maintain his humility without crumbling deserves this award. Now I would like to call on Humble Irving himself in person to present this award.
Bernie, I never would have said it, but you heard Bernie say, nobody knows how difficult it is to be humble. It's just Bernie and me. There aren't many. How many times we would like to be arrogant? We would like to show what we made of, but what do? We stay humble. When Jerry and I thought of giving this award, we never thought that we would find anyone worthy of receiving it, except maybe a doctor, you know, who devotes himself to the care of the sick, to humanity. But when they read the list to me of Bernie's qualifications, I said, Jerry, I don't know whether we'll ever give this again, but certainly tonight, we couldn't find a better recipient of this award than Bernie Harris. Now, let me show this. You mind if we plug the cook? Humble Earth Humility Award for 1983 to Bernie Harris. Now, this is the logo of the cookie. It's found in all Dale markets. Never crumbles. Like Jerry told you, the stress and strain that he works on. Bernie, it's my great pleasure to give this to you.
We probably won't want to say anything.
I'll be forever humble.
Well, as a matter of fact, Al, as a matter of fact, we would have brought samples for everyone, but the first batch turned out pretty bad. I think we're going out of business. That's another reason why this may be the last award. I'd like to now call on some of Bernie's friends who feel that they would like to say a few words, and one in particular, that famous, well-known, electrifying personality, Dawn Hart. Welcome. Where did you learn this from?
Hey, attaboy, come on.
A lot of you don't know that I'm the immediate past president of an august group of people representing the industry to which Mr. Harris has been so proudly a member, the National Glass Theaters Association. I've come here tonight to witness, please, sir, to witness this, what I thought was to be a rewarding experience to a man who's given there will be too tomorrow. Tender. Larry Larson, is that the orchestra leader's name? Maybe you ought to play a few bars for Tinker as we drum him out of the chord. I had a few very sincere words I wanted to offer to you, but after Joe Henderson's, the late Joe Henderson, remark, so well timed for your outgoing, the only thing I can say to you, Bernie, is that you're celebrating your 65th tonight. Now, tonight, Bernie is celebrating, pay attention, his 65th birthday. Did you notice out here in front, the ladies would come up and bring one after another. So he would do this. Tomorrow night, he's going to be celebrating his 66th, and the day after, his 67th. This is a great way to go. Bernie, I haven't anything to give you, because people like the opportunity you've given the Southern California glass dealers, the experience that Clarence Woods and Jay Much and Joe Henderson have with an innovation that they produced, that you picked up and marketed, that gave our association a tremendous boost in an educational fund. It was the CAT panel song. We tremendously, did I say that? I did say that wrong. The Makita. You want to leave that out? You want to just say the Bernie Harris mirror saw cutting device. Sit down! I'm going to shut up.
He never has anything to say.
You know, sometimes you hear about electrifying personalities in your bands, and then you're disappointed. I'm sure that nobody was disappointed this evening. We'd like to throw it open to Bernie's friends and acquaintances, and anyone who would like to reminisce or say anything. We have 2 mics up there. We really welcome having you come up there, and I know some of you during our management seminars said that you would like to see Bernie get everything that's coming to him, and you'd like to let it all hang out, and this is your opportunity. Mr. Lessner.
Tell him, Frank. Bernie, happy birthday. And tomorrow I'm going to pay my bill.
Talking about paying bills, when I first came to C.R. Lawrence, Bernie said to me, Jerry, you're one of the family. There's nothing too good for you. And that's what I've gotten up to this point. About 2 years after I had first come to C.R. Lawrence, I said, Bernie, I want to sit down. I want to talk to you about money. He says, money? What's that? I said, Bernie, I really need to be paid. He says, well, we invite you to the annual picnic every year. He says, that's an expensive picnic. Can we get someone else up here now who would like to take the mic and say something this evening? We've got another 15 minutes to kill, and if you don't get up there, we're going to sit here no matter what happens. So let's see, who else is... oh, here we go. Carlos. Carlos happens to be one of the outstanding volleyball players at C.R. Lawrence. And as I understand, that's one of the reasons they keep him there. Plays with Donstein.
Well, Mr. Harris, we'd like to thank you for everything you've done for us. We'd also like to ask you for a raise at this time.
I think the time has come that management should be heard from. Carlos, on behalf of management, we want to thank you for everything that you're doing for us. As far as the other subject, no.
Carlos, I'm sure that I speak for management when I say that you have a lifetime invitation to the annual company picnic, along with me and others, whether you stay with the company or leave. Russ?
I'd just like to say happy birthday, Bernie. And is this now the time to have the career planning thing?
For people like you, is it now the time for career planning?
Russ has been here too. Oh yes, Russ has been here long enough for career planning. You're right. I was thinking about the 1-minute redirection.
Jim Aldette.
Who else? Where? Jim Odette? Did I hear Jim Odette? Oh, Jim Odette. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the original Gang of Four, Jim Odette.
Well, Jerry, I still want you to know you're welcome to the annual picnic, even after tonight. I want to thank Bertie for 20 years of employment, and I want to thank everybody that works for C.R. Lawrence Company for coming here to wish Bernie a good, happy birthday.
Okay, now we would like to hear from someone who has something to say. Chris Lombard, I'm sure, folks, you're in for a treat.
I just wanted to say to Bernie, on behalf of me and a bunch of other guys like me over the years that he's given a chance to, just really thanks, because Bernie's probably one of the most understanding guys I've ever known in my life. And for the opportunities Bernie and C.R. Lawrence have given me and so many of us here tonight, there's just not enough words to say, other than thank you and we love you.
We love you!
I think Chris speaks for all of us, but you have to remember.
Hey, listen, I suddenly don't know what to say. Is this mic on?
The other one.
The guys in, I suddenly don't know what to say. I wanted to tell you happy birthday.
Yay!
But you don't need that anyway. You'll be happy tomorrow anyway.
Happy.
But while Jerry was on the subject of this 1-minute management, my wife was ribbing me all the time about this 1-minute stuff. She wants a 1-minute sex management. Can we take that up at the next seminar? I mean,
You want less or more?
Anyway, I want to thank you for the raise you're going to give us all the names for.
Al, one of the most important things we've learned from Bernie Harris is to stay within your limitations.
All right, ladies, shut up. All right. Happy birthday, Bernie.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hear from the last two speakers of the evening, and I'd like to introduce a distinguished friend and relative of Bernie Harris, Mr. Michael Harris. Would you please welcome him?
If you want to hear Bray's jokes, when he was first appointed, I'm told that somebody asked you for a raise and he showed him dirty pictures. It's not original, he told it to me, but it's out.
Don't explain. Don't explain. Say it again. We didn't get it, Mike.
I'll show the pictures later. I'd like to thank the band. I'd like to give my compliments to the chef. Unfortunately, I can't.
speech, actually, it was 15 minutes. Because Don said, you know, got to fill it in. See, what happened was I showed my speech to my wife. So I showed it to my wife too, she sneered at both. But she sneered particularly at the speech. She had memories. Women do. But what's so funny about my memory? Do you know, Pat, do you know something like that? Not a girl, but the thing was that I was going to make a whole number, but what she read it and it cut back, 45 minutes of really hard slog on the typewriter. It gets cut back to a 3-line thing. He did that. So I'm anyway. She cut it back, and I'm under embargo. I'm not allowed to talk about sex. All sex. Normal sex, usual sex, abnormal sex, and the Californian variety. Additionally verboten is the subject of homosexuality, both male and female, including general references to the floods in Utah and the resultant threat to the Mormon dikes there. Any mention of loose pages in the congressional report and presidential aides in the White House. So all that's gone. All of it. So, as many of you probably know, I've been living in Australia, and the most extravagant thing an Australian can say about anybody else is he's a decent bloke.
Speaker of the evening really needs no introduction, so I am going to say very little about him. In fact, I'm going to take just 1 minute, and I'm going to set a 1-minute goal, and then a 1-minute praising and a 1-minute reprimand, and turn it over to Don Friese, who will talk to you about this decent bloke.
Saved me for last because they told me I was supposed to be serious. So here I go. I first want to say before I make my few comments that I really appreciate very much everybody coming here tonight to show Bernie how we feel about him and how we care, and this is something that I think it's long overdue for him to have a party. And it's nice to have a party when you have your friends with you. I started at C.R. Lawrence Company after I got out of the service. I went to work for this company, and it was near bankruptcy, and they were ready to close it up. They advertised, they tried to sell this company, but after numerous attempts, nobody would buy it. Nobody was even interested. They decided they were going to close it up. But much to our surprise, this little 45-year-old Jewish boy came by, and he convinced them to sell it to him. I still remember my first exposure to Bernie when I first met him for the first time, when he came driving up to C.R. Lawrence Company in an old broken down Plymouth, full of dents, scratches. I looked at that car and said to myself, My God. How could a man ever run a business that can't even drive a car? Bernie is famous today for his driving annex and what one guy can do for a car, no matter what kind of car it might be. We tried to get him, and it's proven through the years that whatever car he's able to get a hold of, he can demolish it. Again, my concern being, again, seeing this car, seeing this gentleman was, my God, what's he going to do with this business, into my life and my career? As he got out of the car, he was carrying a large briefcase. It became synonymous with him, and I was always curious what was in that briefcase.
Money.
Being Jewish, I was sure it was money. And I felt there was better days ahead. Because I always offered him to carry that case. And on no time did he ever let me touch that case.
Because he's Jewish, schmuck.
And the reason being was in the case was his dirty laundry. And he didn't want to share it with anyone. Well, needless to say, we were all very curious about what this little guy was all about and what he might do. He started off setting a very good example for all of us. There was no job that he wouldn't do in the company. He started off trying to be a salesman. And I remember when he used to take trips to Fresno and to Las Vegas. And he would be gone days at a time, leaving early in the morning, coming back late at night. And on his return, it would take us 3 to 4 days to try to figure out what he sold. And all the little gimmicks he would bring back with him. He was a buyer. He purchased merchandise for our company. I can remember one night when he went to a cocktail party. And he met this real whiz kid. And the guy was selling a product called Whiz On and Stays Off. And I can still remember the next morning when he came in all excited saying, Don, I got it, the $1 million product. It took us 15 years to get rid of this product. The bankers are still looking for us for that invoice that the guy typed us with. He was an order taker. It used to take us days to try to interpret his orders. Shipping, he worked very hard in the shipping department to be an example to everybody. Packages, he put the wrong labels on them. Shipped them to the wrong customers. He was a real inspiration for all of us. Hours, the way he worked in this company was unbelievable. He was willing to work whatever hours were necessary to make the business a success. He taught us that 6 was a special number with him. 6 in the morning till 6 at night. As he would say, it's only a half a day. See what the rest of the world was all about. So he started to travel. His travel schedule was a real inspiration for anyone trying out for the Olympics. He ran through more airports and spent more nights all over the world. And he's known worldwide with his case. When they see him coming, they wonder what will be next. Thailand? He's a real sport. Bernie really likes athletic events. He used to play golf when he first came to C.R. Lawrence Company. In fact, when he first came, he used to come in early in the morning because he played at Griffith Park. And he had to fight for a starting time. It's got in the way of doing business, so he decided to give it up for tennis. He's now a ranked player at the Hillcrest Country Club, where his 75-year-old partner and he just won a doubles tournament. As I worked with Bernie over the years, he really had very few vices. When he first came to the company, he used to smoke cigars, and my God, were they terrible. But he soon found out that they were harmful to his health, and he decided to give them up. He since then has taken up something that's more demanding. He is now the bubblegum king of Los Angeles. If you ever want a piece, go to his office. He's a real noisy chewer. Well, well, history speaks for itself. Bernie turned this C.R. Lawrence Company into a very successful business. And he's given many of us an opportunity also to succeed. This little 45-year-old man proved to be the biggest man, the most courageous, hardworking, likable, sensitive, caring, and overall nice guy that I have ever, and most of us have ever met. We even met, and we want to wish him a happy 65th birthday and look forward to his working and being with us for many more years to come. We wish you, Bernie, all the happiness and hope that you have everything in your life that you want, because you have given so much to all of us. Now, if you're still awake, we'd like to present you with a present, Bernie. This is happy birthday, Bernie, to an ace that can't be beaten. And also being the sport that he is, we want to thank all of you tonight who contributed to Bernie's favorite charity, the Gateway Hospitals, where we received over $1,300 in funds that will be given in Bernie's name, for which we thank all of you. We think it's only fair that we give Bernie a chance to give a rebuttal to all the comments that were made tonight. But we do say again to you, Bernie, happy birthday.
After all these kind words that were said, I'm not sure whether it's a eulogy or not. Whether I should be lying out in state in front of all of you so that you could eulogize me and I wouldn't even hear it. It's great for all of you to come here, spend the evening with me, help me celebrate my birthday. Some of the things are very disappointing, however. I have a 35-year-old tennis partner that I played with on Saturday night. When he found out I was 65 years old, he would not only come to the party, but he's canceled all of my reservations. I really think it would have been better if everybody would put my true age on there. 39 and holding. So that the people wouldn't feel that really I'm as ancient as I really am. By the way, I see we have our lawyer here tonight. It's very nice. I mean, the only reason we invited him is it's very difficult to get him on the telephone. We have a number of lawyers around. You got what happened to Joe? Did he leave?
This guy says he's a lawyer too.
That's funny. I think Joe left. It's interesting. He's great. But I always remember Joe because he was saying to me tonight that they just bought a new company and they wanted to come over and have us give them some help because it's a similar type of company as ours. And I had to remind him that about 20-odd years ago, I needed some friendly advice. So I went up to see Joe, and he gave me some friendly advice and sent me a bill for $50. So I wanted him to be sure to know that any advice that he wanted, that he would also get for $50.
Inflation, Bernie, 100.
We have no inflation now. Inflation's gone. It's a real pleasure to see all of you tonight. I mean, some of you I didn't expect to see. Some of you I'm glad to see. Some of you I haven't seen in a while, and it's good that you finally came down to say hello. I missed you. I missed a lot of people over the years. Friends that I've made, friends that I've lost. people that I've known and people that have gone on to in other areas. But I'm still here. I mean, I'm just like a bad penny. I always seem to bounce and come back. And it's warm, it's heartwarming to be amongst people who I can call friends, whether you be associates in my business or whether you work with me, you're all friends of mine. And I treat you that way and you treat me that way. And we'll go on in that vein for a number of years. I figure I've got another 20 years to put out after that. She's been talking to somebody. But we get along. And we're going to get along, and we're going to make it a better company. No raises, by the way.
Thanks, Bernie. Hey, why do you think you came here tonight?
You came here tonight to hear that there was going to be no raises. I mean, let's not push this thing. I mean, I don't like to repeat it. We're going along, we're having a better year this year. And with some luck, if things keep up the way they're going, we're all going to prosper. So just hang around and keep a good thought and work with it, and we'll make it. We got a fellow over here who takes care of the books, and I'm sitting opposite the guy that checks what he does. And when they get through with the year, maybe we could come up and show that things are in the right direction as we go. We have, I want you to know, over this one table here, I know that all of you know it, but these are the people, these are the computer people. These are the people that stop the computer from working. These are the people that tell you that they purchase for us a computer that has no downtime, except when they make the downtime. And it's not the computer's fault.
No, it's compact. Are we allowed to ask questions?
No. You had your chance and you wouldn't get up and say
In the next 20 years, can we go to lunch someplace else?
For the next 20 years, we're going to the corner for lunch. But anyway, I don't want to take any more time. I know we've had a long evening. You all had to work today, I hope. And we'll go on our way. Most of you are too young, otherwise I was going to tell a story that I'm very fond of.
Tell her, I'm not too young.
No, I mean, it's only because you most likely wouldn't appreciate it. But anyway, I'll tell the story anyway about the rabbi and the minister. By the way, Henderson, you're the best Jewish comedian that I know. About the rabbi and the minister and the priest that we're talking about. When does life begin? Of course, the priest said that life begins when the two cells get together and become one. That is when life begins. And the minister said, no, that's not exactly correct. We believe that life begins when the fetus begins to form and there's something that you can find as life. And the rabbi said, well, we believe that when the kids all leave home and take the dog, that's when life begins.
Until 6 a.m., at which time everyone will report to the warehouse for inventory. Now, there will be music for another hour. And thank you all for coming, and thank you, Don and Bernie, for including me in the CR Lawrence family.
Let me say 2 or 3 minutes.